Hi, my name is Ray Krone. I've spent 10 years in Arizona state prisons, three of them on death row for something I didn't do. I'm very familiar with the justice system, with the feeling of being wrongfully convicted, sentenced to death, and then life, suffering in prison for something that was not my responsibility. And I'm actually innocent in my case because their DNA got the person that did do it. There's no question of my innocence. And since my release in 2002, as the 100th person in America to have faced a death sentence wrongfully, innocently, served their time on death row, I now use my time to support injustice or fight against injustice and reform the justice system all around this world.
Well, Ray, I take it you know a little bit about the Lynette White case, which is similar to yours in that the murder of that young woman was absolutely appalling, but it was followed by a terrible miscarriage of justice. And eventually, in 2003, the real perpetrator, Jeffrey Gafoor, was brought to justice. He got a very low tariff and amazingly was asked to serve less than two of the innocent people for the same crime before he could apply for parole. What do you think about that? Because it has some similarities with what happened to you.
Absolutely. Well, first off, it's an outrage. The acts perpetrated on this poor woman by this man. It's also brings back very painful memories for me of sitting there hearing accusations made against me, in my case, against a woman. Um, to feel that injustice, that outrage, being accused of such a horrible crime as murder, rape, kidnapping, later hear the judge say guilty. To know that innocent people in this case actually served time for something they didn't do, that the person that was responsible never came forward to admit their guilt. It's just still an outrage, and it upsets me extremely.
What happened in this case is the innocent people, there were five of them, served a total of 16 years for a crime they didn't commit. That's between them. Two of them were freed at the trial, and the other three at appeal, but their lives were ruined, and so was the lives of the victim and her family. So you have a system which has basically destroyed the lives of five innocent men and their families, and the murder victim and her family. What happened then is that the judge decided that 13 years was a sufficient tariff. That means he can apply for release on parole after just 13 years. I believe it is the lowest tariff of its type for a crime of this magnitude. Now he is up for parole again. This is his sixth application. And they had originally said that they were going to do this behind closed doors. It wasn't going to be in public. Media couldn't attend. Nobody could attend. How do you feel about justice being done in such a fashion?
Well, justice is something that all over the world we have systems that might be a little difference in the time that may be served, how that trial is held, how juries are seated. But nevertheless, we all want something that's fair, that's consistent, that does, in a way, help that family, the victims' families, to heal. And there's more than one victims in this. Obviously, the families of those men that were wrongfully convicted, that suffered through those years with their loved ones being in that prison, where someone else should have been, and now is. To me, it does seem like a very, very short time for such a brutal act committed on a defenseless, helpless woman. Um, and again, my sense of justice, my sense of fairness is again outraged and troubled by the fact that this man is currently up for parole after what he did to so many families and brutally murdered this woman. It does not seem in any way fair or just to me.
What tariff do you think Jeffrey Gafoor should have to serve before he is released? for the murder of Lynette White and having allowed these innocent people to have their lives ruined?
I honestly would not set a time. I was not at the trial. That was supposed to be the judges. The people that set that sentencing are supposed to have taken in all things considered during that trial with the input of the victims' families, and should have set a fair and just time. I believe now, my understanding is that he's actually up for parole. And I believe now that that board, those people now, or tariff, I believe is the word actually that's used there. But I believe now that that is something that should be open to the public, that this should be heard publicly, that this should be allowed at this point now. These are the men, the women who are going to be responsible now to see whether this man is released, whether he is actually considered safe for the public, which is the most important concern of all, is for the rest of the public to be safe from this man who committed such a brutal murder. I was not there for the trial. I will not be there for the hearing, but I think that should be left up to the public and to the those that are going to hear this tariff, that are going to be sitting there to determine whether or not this man is safe for the whole public of that country, to be able to allow this man to reintegrate back into society. That is the question for those that now that it's in their hands to answer. And I'm hoping they open that up to the public to allow that input of all the people that have been harmed so violently by this man.
What happened in this particular case is the procedure is, if you want a parole hearing to be in public, you have to say with more than 12 weeks before the date of the hearing that you want a public hearing. But what happened in this case is nobody was informed until 6 weeks before the parole application is due to be heard. What do you think of that?
Again, it sounds like a failure of system, whether it's an intentional, deliberate, or was just an honest mistake. But nevertheless, it sounds like it is a fair and just option or requirement to give that notice in a timely manner to allow the public's response. And I believe since there was a mistake and error and omission, that should be, I guess, in a way, an excuse or allowance for the proper procedures to be performed, for the proper time limits, the restraints, the notifications that are required to be given appropriately and properly.
That in your case, you were tried twice. At least once you were sentenced to death. The real perpetrator, you can name him if you want, was sentenced to less than the death penalty. How did you feel about that? And I also understand that they actually tried to get the real perpetrator to implicate you again, even though the DNA had by that time proved you innocent.
Yes, absolutely. There are outrageous behaviors in our justice system by those that have the power to arrest, prosecute, and sentence. It did happen in my case. Just a quick background, I was convicted on a bite mark. I was called the snaggletooth killer. The only evidence used was a mark found in the victim's body. An expert testified that mark happened at the time of death, that it matched my teeth, that my teeth were unique, and that me, Ray Krone, was the murderer. It has now since been proven bite mark evidence in America is pretty much considered junk science, is rarely used anymore. Nevertheless, because I wouldn't take a plea bargain, I was sentenced to death by the judge. I later on got a new trial because the prosecution withheld evidence of another bite mark expert who said it wasn't me. There also a videotape that was introduced at the last moment that we had no chance or opportunity to rebut. I was, again, had a new trial. In comparison, my first trial was 3.5 days. My second trial was 7 weeks. We actually had bite mark experts testify. During that trial, evidence came out of DNA, of hair, things that did not match me. At the end of the trial, the jury had found me guilty. The judge sentenced me to life because he said he had lingering doubt of my guilt. He wasn't sure that I'd committed this crime. And now he sentenced me to 25 to life. So during this 10-year ordeal, 3 on death row, 6 more serving a life sentence, and quite a few years in the county jail, I did learn a lot about the justice system, at least the American system of justice. But most justice systems are still a system that's supposed to get to the truth. And that did not happen in my case. Some of the biggest liars were those people that collected the evidence, that actually went out and tried to coerce a confession out of me. And when they did get DNA, did get the actual perpetrator, they tried to get him to say that I was there with him. These are the things that I went through, my personal experience. And just for a quick background, I spent 6 years active duty in U.S. Air Force, 7 years as a postal worker. I was not a criminal. I did not have a criminal record, no criminal arrest record, period. And they put me on death row and later a life sentence. So yes, this experience this happened at the age of 35, by the way. I was not a youngster. I was not a child. I was a grown adult. So I did come to be a crusader for justice, for fairness, for truth and accuracy, because there is no justice without truth and accuracy. And so yes, these things do hit me personal and brings back those days, those memories of sitting in that courtroom, of sitting in that jail cell, wondering, why me, Lord? What did I do to deserve this? Why are these people in power not looking for the truth, not seeking the justice that they are sworn to uphold? I will try to do my best to at least use what little voice that I have, at least to raise recognition when I see that something I think is completely unfair and unjust.
If you could address the British Parole Board over the application of Jeffrey Charles Gafoor to be released on parole for the murder of Lynette White, bearing in mind that it had also destroyed the lives of the Cardiff Five and their family, as well as Lynette's family, what would you like to say to them?
Well, that's a very good question. It's again, the people that sit in that judgment need to hear all possible angles, all possible concerns, and what the possible threats are to society. Again, it's their it is absolutely their obligation to protect the citizens of the country from evil, from danger, from threats that were lawfully sentenced to prison time. And so I would like to say, I believe, if I had the opportunity, that their responsibility is never to be taken lightly. And I'm pretty sure that they took an oath to defend and uphold justice. And I would hope that they would hear all sides, for as long as people have a opportunity to speak their concerns, that it would be open to the public and allow inputs from all those that were affected and all those that have a direct interest, concern, or experience in wrongful convictions of injustice and unfairness all around this world.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I believe that covers, and again, it's important for them to do to the best of their ability to allow those with experience and knowledge and personal loss to be heard in this decision, this a very important decision.
Ray Krone, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.